a very special arrow. I'm not sure how much time we have for all the details.
Tell me about this arrow.
I'm going to string this.
Where did this come
Ulysses
from?
Arrow. And since this is the time machine, time machine Toronto with Ulysses Arrow, I think it's appropriate to bring this out. And it is a hunter's bow from Irian Jaya, which is one of the most remote corners of the world. Ulysses Arrow has been there, and that's how I acquired this.
Nice.
And the bow's been strung. Here is the arrow.
Ooh.
That is shot in Irian Jaya with this bow. It's powerful enough to stop a charging wild boar with vicious tusks.
Ooh, nice. Yeah.
Welcome to Time Machine Toronto with Ulysses Arrow. And we're at the start of another one of our epic walks.
All right.
This is the Summerhill Lcdo.
Yeah.
In Midtown Toronto, formerly the North Toronto train station, the biggest booze shack in Toronto, the country, maybe the world. But it's not the only reason it's one of my favorite spots. The other reason is this fantastic architecture, built in 1916, opened in 1916 as the North Toronto train station, and you still see the trains going by, but no passenger traffic. This is our starting point. From here, we're going to go into Rosedale, walk through some of the richest streets the city has, winding up at Morley Callahan's old house, and crossing over from there along the Rosedale Valley Road footbridge into St. Jamestown, going from one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in Toronto to one of the poorer neighborhoods in Toronto. That contrast, I think, is also going to be interesting. So are you ready to have some fun?
I was born ready.
Okay, let's follow the arrow, Ulysses Arrow. So 1916, this is open for business as the North Toronto State train station, and this is before Union was built.
Oh, wow.
This is before Union was built. And, looking at this, what does it remind you of, DT?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And in particular, that tower in front of us, the clock tower.
It reminds me a little bit of the Parliament buildings, I have to say, the Peace Tower, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Maybe that's a lame reference. What else is it?
Actually, this tower is modeled on the clock tower in the Piazza di San Marco in Venezia.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's modeled on that, and it's.
Wow.
I think it's a striking and extremely well executed replica of it.
Beautiful.
What's funny is that this whole North Toronto train station sat vacant for decades. There was a small liquor store inside, but it was completely unused and forgotten. One of the finest pieces of architecture the city has. And it took decades for someone to decide to revive the whole thing. Its history, it didn't last very long as a train station. Opened in 1916. Mm-hmm. By 1930, less than 15 years later, it's decommissioned. Mm-hmm. It's decommissioned. And one of the reasons is because Union was built, mm-hmm. and that really just took the bulk of all the passenger train traffic.
Right, because we're kind of north of Union here. This is like towards Midtown.
We're in Midtown. Yeah.
Right.
We're between Summerhill to the north and Rosedale immediately to the south of us. And so it was mothballed very early on. Mm-hmm. The funny thing is, there was a what happened there? Yeah, May 22, 1939. Mm-hmm. It was mothballed in 1930, but get this now, they reopen it in 1939 so that King George VI and his wife, Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, Huey II's mother, they reopened it
Really?
to just for their visit. Imagine that.
Wow.
After a decade of closure. And do you know what? Try to get the city to give you a heritage designation for a really interesting building to keep it out of the grasp of developers. It's a huge battle, and yet, for a one-time visit, for a coffee break, essentially, they will reopen the entire station.
Wow.
I think it says something about Toronto. Anyway, a great piece of architecture. The limestone is actually from Winnipeg, this kind of golden yellow limestone. We have quarries in Ontario, southern Ontario, but for some reason they decided to import this from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And the other really kind of intriguing thing about this is the time capsule that's buried in the cornerstone right behind me.
Okay.
Right behind me, and that was it was actually put there in 1915, a year before the train station itself opened for business.
Right.
And it was reopened again in 100 years later. It was reopened again in 2015, and inside, somewhat forgotten, someone just remembered, hey, do you know what? There's actually a time capsule there that we should take a look at.
Right.
And they didn't know where it was. There's no marker there, but they didn't know which corner stone.
No way.
Right?
Yeah, there's a lot of corners on this building.
There are a lot of corners, yeah. And they finally located the time capsule. Removed it, and there were old blueprints of the North Toronto train station. There were newspapers from the day, coins, and other kind of memorabilia like that. And what they did, once they retrieved that, they put a whole new cache of things into the capsule in 2015, including an iPhone, an iPad, copies of that day's Globe and Mail, Financial Post, Toronto Star, I think, and resealed it like Tut's tomb in the Valley of the Kings for the next 100 years.
Wow.
And you know, this is the time machine, right? Where we are the time machine Toronto, and wouldn't it be fun to get into the time machine and see what is put into that time capsule in 2150? Right?
I wonder.
Wouldn't that be cool? I wonder if there'll be like holographic, avatars of people, or tiny little pills that with a splash of water from a dropper turn into a delicious steak dinner and rare burgundy wine and a lobster feast.
Sure.
All contained
Sign
in
me up.
tiny tablets. What do you think? Should we get into that time machine? Do we have time,
Yeah.
or do we have to move on?
You know, I think there's always time with the time machine, so
There is, huh?
if you want to point the arrow and lead the way, Mr. Ulysses.
Why don't we save it maybe to the last and take
All right.
a trip forward almost 100 years?
Okay. Nice.
We support the neighborhood. Food and fire.
So we're beginning our tour of Rosedale at 104A Pricefield Road, right over my shoulder. Well, it's 104A Pricefield. That was my first address in Toronto when I arrived here 100 years ago. When Ulysses Arrow arrived in Toronto 100 years ago, I had the garret right at the very top. On my right, your left, I guess. That was my writer's garret at 104A Pricefield, the entranceway on the side, and this is where it all began.
Cool.
Yeah. Ted Rogers, I know, used to live not far from here.
Did he pass away? Is he still?
Oh yeah, I mean like
a while
a
ago,
decade
right?
ago. Or
Yeah.
maybe even more now.
Yeah.
David Thompson. My arrow has found a mark. Its mark, not the mark, but a mark. We're kind of in the heart of Rosedale here, surrounded by gorgeous houses.
I'd say.
Of the rich and Toronto famous. Just a short little stroll from where we were earlier at the Summerhill Lcdo. And this is the sort of, not far from here, you've got the house where David Thompson lives, Canada's richest man. I think fortune estimated at $41 billion. He's Thomson Reuters Corporation. It's third generation. Thomson Reuters, Globe and Mail, and he has a title. He's third Baron Thompson of Fleet Street, which makes him a hereditary peer. Now, we don't have a peerage system in this country, but I think it means he's related to the Queen or something. So David Thompson lives not far from here, and Heather Reisman, Jerry Schwartz, they're in this neighborhood. Heather Reisman is, of course, Chapter's Indigo. Jerry Schwartz is Canada's most accomplished financial magician, able to make billions of dollars in assets appear and disappear with the twinkle of an eye. And the late, great Ted Rogers also lived in this neighborhood. That's, of course, Rogers Communications, one of the two biggest telcos in the country. Talking about this, it makes me think, how in Hollywood they have these maps to the stars' homes, Beverly Hills, maps to the stars' homes. This is where Clint Eastwood lives, and this is where, Russell Crowe and Carmen Diaz and et cetera, live. I think maybe we should have a map to the stars of Rosedale. What do you think, DT?
I mean, it's an idea.
We might be able to monetize that idea.
Well, now I'm listening.
Yeah.
Now you got my ear. Let's make some dough. Let's
mull that a little more and maybe take a bit of a stroll through the neighborhood to get a better sense, a better flavor of some of the lovely architecture that it does offer up.
Let's take a look. Because we do want to have some sort of reveal and like. Ooh.
The same tiger lilies that were here that we planted.
Mr. Arrow, where are we? What is this house?
I followed the arrow, and so did you, and it has found the mark of the day. The mark of the day.
The second mark.
Well, but the mark.
This is the
few marks, but this is really what it was intended to find.
Gotcha.
We're standing in front of the house of Morley Callahan. Morley Callahan, one of Canada's most talented writers ever. His heyday was probably in the 20s and 30s, and this is where he spent the last years of his life.
Wow.
On the edge of Rosedale,
which is currently under construction.
Which is currently under construction.
Yeah.
And this was it, where he lived with his wife Loretta, raised a couple of sons here, and he is one of the most gifted writers this country has has ever produced, and yet, he's been somewhat lost and pushed aside in the last decades, partly by equally great writers like Mordecai Richler, and also partly by much lesser writers like Margaret Atwood or Alice Munro. But that is kind of where it stands. His legacy is a significant one. And, it makes me think Canada has not produced a writer of international renown in many, many decades. Standing here, it really makes me think about that. And why is that? Is it because there's a lack of talent in this country? I don't think so. I think the reason is that Canada has a gutless publishing industry. And I know of what I speak here because I've had my share of interaction with them. And they're a bunch of scaredy frighty cats to publish anything new, original, or God forbid, something that should offend anybody. And the result is that Canada languishes in literary mediocrity for decades and decades now. And it was not the case. It was not always the case, and Morley Callahan is living proof of that. He was a great friend of Ernest Hemingway's. It was the same generation. And a lot of people know this, a lot of people don't know this. Ernest Hemingway was a reporter at the Toronto Star. At the Toronto Star, and that's where he met Morley, who was also a reporter at the Toronto Star. They were both reporting to the same managing editor, Henry Hindmarsh, who was this kind of villainous character who they both despised because he had a horrible reputation for trying to break young, talented writers who had aspirations of being more than city reporters. And so it was that kind of mutual animosity toward Harry Hindmarsh that probably first brought them together, and then a common love of fiction, writing fiction. And funny thing is, Hemingway went back to Paris. He'd already been in Paris before he met Morley in the Toronto Star newsroom. He was their European correspondent. He went back to Paris. He invited Morley to come and join him for a summer. The summer of 1929 in Paris. And so Morley took his young wife, Loretta, and off they went to Paris. The funny thing is, despite his literary accomplishments, the thing that Morley Callahan is probably best known for is the fact that he knocked out Ernest Hemingway in a boxing match, in a boxing ring, at the American Club on the Montparnasse in Paris. And now, but get this, that in itself is a bit of history and literary history, and it's become really urban legend. But guess who the timekeeper for this boxing match was, DT?
Who was it?
Another literary luminary, American,
okay,
of the same generation.
I'm drawing a blank. Tell me.
Scott Fitzgerald. Scott Fitzgerald
Right.
was the timekeeper.
Of course.
Can you imagine being a fly on the wall of that boxing club that afternoon?
It would have been something.
Yeah. Morley and Hemingway were sparring partners. They enjoyed going there to spar. But on this occasion, Scott Fitzgerald came along for the ride, and Hemingway, as usual, wanted to show off a bit, And, well, it didn't quite work out. But I wish I had the book in which, the novel really, in which Morley recounts that legendary boxing match. But, hey, wait, hang on a second. Hang on, stay there, don't go anywhere. I think I see something.
Okay. I'm just gonna look over at these trees. Ooh. That is a big tree. Holy moly. Wow. Oh. Ulysses is coming back. Oh.
This is so cool.
What did you find?
There's Morley Callahan's yard has a buck tree.
Whoa, score.
I haven't seen one of these in ages.
Nice one.
And so I've picked a couple of right books right off the tree.
Yep.
The low-hanging fruit. And
Yep.
the first one I found, That Summer in Paris.
Okay.
Which actually describes the boxing match at the American Club on the Montparnasse.
Wow.
Another one I have here by Morley Callahan is A Time for Judas.
Okay.
Which is a really interesting story, novel written much later in life by him, and it's almost like an early Da Vinci Code.
Interesting.
Almost like that. What it does is it tries to explain, why did Judas betray Christ? And it actually turns Judas, who is considered to be, this villain, into a sympathetic character who was kind of cajoled by Christ to betray him, because Christ knew that he wouldn't become the Christ
without the downfall, the betrayal, right?
And the crucifixion.
Wow.
And so he was a reluctant participant.
That's a trippy perspective.
Yeah,
that's
he was
very
a
neat.
reluctant participant in the whole, drama that unfolded in Jerusalem. And this is kind of interesting. The Complete Stories of Morley Callahan, Volume 4.
Yeah.
These are some of his early stories, written mostly in Toronto, I think, actually.
I wonder if that house on the front of the Complete Stories, it doesn't look too dissimilar from this house.
It doesn't, does it?
Look, this part here is that part there.
Right.
And I just wonder.
It's quite possible that
It's got a tall chimney with the weird, I don't know.
Yeah, with that little cap on
It
top,
might just
right?
be.
A little chimney hat.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll have to take a closer look at that. But I do want to just read a little bit
Please.
to you.
Yeah, we're here on hallowed ground.
On sacred literary Toronto ground.
For real.
I mean, this is about as Olympus-like you can get in Toronto when it comes to literary lore and history and all that. So That Summer in Paris, if I remember correctly, is that... I'll flip through here a little bit.
We can cut this part too.
Yeah, okay. Well, no, I think I found it here.
Ooh.
So what does Morley say here? How does he describe it? Well, let me just read you a little bit of it here.
Please.
This is Morley writing about what happened in 1929, many, many years later. He says, right at the beginning of that round, and we're at the American Club on the Montparnasse,
Yes.
Ernest got careless. He came in too fast, his left down, and he got smacked on the mouth. His lip began to bleed. It had often happened. It should have meant nothing to him. Hadn't the joke with Jimmy the bartender, well, we won't get into Jimmy the bartender here, but we'll pick it up here. Out of the corner of his eye, he may have seen the shocked expression on Scott's face, Scott Fitzgerald. Or the taste of blood in his mouth may have made him want to fight more savagely. He came lunging in, swinging more recklessly. As I circled around him, I kept jabbing at his bleeding mouth. I had to forget all about Scott, for Ernest had become rougher. His punching a little wilder than usual. His heavy punches, if they had landed, would have stunned me. Morley was a kind of diminutive, kind of smallish Irish Toronto guy. Would have stunned me. I had to punch faster and harder myself to keep away from him. It bothered me that he was taking the punches on his face like a man telling himself he only needed to land one big punch himself. Well, he does try to do that. And we skip a little bit forward. Then Ernest, wiping blood from his mouth with his glove, probably made careless with exasperation and embarrassment for having Scott there, came leaping at me. Stepping in, I beat him to the punch. The timing must have been just right. I caught him on the jaw. Spinning around, he went down, sprawled out on his back. The knockout punch.
Wow.
And I will say that Hemingway's friendship with Fitzgerald was never the same again after that. And his friendship with Morley was forever damaged by that event. Because Hemingway could never stand to be second to anyone ever.
Right. Very competitive man.
Well, more than that. But that's for another exploration.
Thank you, Arrow.
Yeah, with that,
Yeah.
we're going to go over to the footbridge just around the corner here that Morley liked to walk for years and years whenever he was struggling with writer's block or needed inspiration, needed to get out of the house. He would come out and go around the corner to the footbridge that we're going to go to next. Are you ready to see the footbridge?
Oh, yeah.
All right, follow me. I'm Ulysses Arrow.
Beautiful.
It's the most epic
Truly.
collection of tiger lilies I've seen in Toronto ever.
Yeah, and at this time of day with this color coming in, the sunlight, they are just...
Van Gogh saw this, he'd go...
Yeah, he'd go crazy, eh?
Bonkers.
Well, we made it to the footbridge, Arrow.
We're at the footbridge, and just a short little couple of minutes stroll from Morley's front door.
Right, we were over here before?
We were over there.
Back there?
Yeah, about a block that way on that street, and on Dale Avenue. And there's the footbridge that he would often walk with his wife Loretta.
Yeah.
And then after she passed, with his trusty companion, his dog.
Okay.
They would walk that footbridge, and appropriately, there's a memorial plaque here to honor Morley Callahan.
Wow, he was 87 when he died, 1990.
18 novels and over 100 short stories.
Yeah.
And that summer in Paris, not just Hemingway and Fitzgerald, he met James Joyce, Ezra Pound, Gertrude Stein, a lot of literary
luminaries.
Luminaries at the time. Luminaries at the time. So now we're just gonna go over cross over to the bridge.
Yeah, let's take a walk. Arrow, you were mentioning earlier that this is sort of a veil between the worlds, so to speak.
It is, yeah. It's. I mean, we're crossing a chasm of a kind. It's I don't know, at least 100 feet below us is the Rosedale Valley Road, which which cuts through a ravine, and so behind us we're leaving rich, privileged Rosedale.
There it is.
Saying goodbye, and crossing this chasm, which is both physical and metaphorical, to the other side, breaking on through to, well, actually, there's a funny little squiggle of a street here, which is a continuation of Glen Road, which is one of the main arteries of Rosedale.
Yeah.
But it leads up to St. Jamestown that I mentioned at the start of our walk.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me just get you looking here across the...
St. Jamestown, which I mentioned at the start of our walk, which is one of the underprivileged, I guess is the best way to describe it, communities and neighborhoods in Toronto. And so this physical and metaphorical chasm divides the haves and the have-nots in Toronto. One of the divides, but it's a very kind of dramatic one, the way it is presented here.
Yeah, there's a road below us, isn't there?
Yeah, way down here. It's really quite a lovely little bridge, and So let's continue on.
Yeah.
Let's cross the bridge to the other side. There's some really interesting graffiti here. There's a subway station just through this little tunnel. It's very kind of Berlin, you know, West Berlin.
Yeah.
East Berlin with the graffiti and
It does have that feeling.
and the subway. Right now it's still very kind of, you know, pastoral really, but very shortly it turns.
Yeah, in autumn it's.
We step into David Bowie, Iggy Pop's Berliner.
Yeah. Yes, here we are, the tunnel.
That tunnel.
Looking very. It's a little foreboding.
But it's such a great little bit of urban kind of geography, right? I mean, Toronto doesn't have many of these kinds of pedestrian tunnels.
That's
particularly.
true. Come to think of it, yeah, you're right.
All this really cool graffiti and graffitas, physical graffiti.
Yeah.
And right to our right here has got to be the coolest subway entrance in the entire Toronto subway system for Sherbrooke.
Right here.
Yeah.
There it is.
Isn't it just so cool?
Just hiding there. Wow.
Take a peek inside there.
Down the tunnel.
Yeah.
I will. Is there any no newspapers for us to read today?
Newspaper taxis appear on the shore.
Well, there is, you know, a piece of ceramic.
Jug of whiskey.
If you like.
Left here by, I don't know, Leonard Cohen? Who's in trouble?
There it is. There's the subway.
Yeah. Oh, look
Whoa,
at that.
nice
Look at that
breeze.
cool breeze.
Whoa.
Lord have mercy on my soul.
Yeah.
I have been reborn.
Baptized in breeze. Well, Arrow, so now we're in St. Jamestown, if I'm not mistaken.
Well,
Or no, where are we?
we're steps away. We're on Glen Road here, which is this funny continuation of Rosedale.
Right.
It's a funny continuation of Rosedale on the wrong side of the tracks,
Gotcha.
so to speak. St. Jamestown is just behind us. These buildings that you're seeing.
Yep. Those high rises.
These high rises. That's all.
Oh, I smell
That's all
food.
part of St. Jamestown, which is, you know, it's the biggest high-rise community in all of Canada.
Wow.
17,000 people
17,000.
live in St. Jamestown, and speaking every language under the sun,
That's a
from
lot of
Tamil to Filipino to Russian and
Hey,
Mandarin.
Speaking of
and-
Filipino, there's a restaurant right there, Manila Centro.
Right.
Filipino
right.
cuisine, takeout and catering. Oh,
Oh, look at those beautiful flowers here.
I think that's what I smell. Those are gorgeous.
I will mention one thing.
Here, let's just get
behind
off
me.
the
No,
sidewalk.
let's stay here. Let's stay
Yeah,
on
yeah.
this side. Behind me, the other way.
Oh, there's a helicopter. Going overhead somewhere. Oh, there it is. Right behind you, Ulysses.
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Orange Rescue.
Yeah.
On this little lick of a street lives a quite a well-known Toronto Vancouver photographer,
Okay.
Lincoln Clarks.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's well known for doing a number of different kind of photo essays,
Sure.
but probably his best one is Heroines.
Okay.
Heroines, which what he did, he photographed the heroin addicts on Vancouver's east side, and published a book of that, which was quite well received. Really gritty kind of photographs, but what made them really special, I think, is that despite that sort of personal hardships and struggles of the people he was photographing, women most of all, he found a sort of beauty and serenity in that, which I think requires a really special eye. And I wish I had I wish I had a copy of his photo book, The Heroines. This is really weird.
Is there a book tree nearby?
There's another.
No way. Well, you better go check it out.
Stay right there.
Yeah, here. Another book tree, eh? Well, I'm gonna look at this tree in the meantime. There is something. Oh, wait here for this to come back.
Wow.
There he is.
Wow. We're in luck. We're in luck.
Find?
Lincoln Clark's special edition Heroines.
There it is.
Heroines.
Speak of it.
Heroines. As I say, really evocative photographs from Vancouver's east side. And he lives both in Vancouver and Toronto. Visit his website for some more of this stuff. worldwidegreeneyes.com. Just the way it sounds.
I'll put the link underneath.
Yeah. Just some really interesting kind of imagery.
Yeah. Nice.
That really captures the atmosphere of that whole, subculture and whatnot. So this is the tail end of Rosedale, and there we have
St.
Jamestown.
Wow. Thank you, Arrow. This has been quite the illuminating walk today.
That concludes the walk for today. We've covered a good amount of real estate, but more so, I think we've traveled through history here.
Maybe even time.
And time, because this is Time Machine Toronto after all. So on that note, I'm going to leave you behind and say until the next time, I'm Ulysses Arrow.
All right. I'll see you later.